Well, actually, I think you went a week early with your description of panto season, to which you respond by saying, "Oh no,
he didn't." There we go. That was too easy. The one thing that you can actually lead me into. Yeah, exactly. We saw a very fun approach from Kemi Badenoch today. A bit of a pick and mix. She didn't really pick any specific subject to go in on. We heard from her talking about the health service, the Home Office, police numbers, teacher numbers, trying to paint this picture, and she sort of landed her payoff. Labour isn't working. Again, bit of a throwback to elections campaigns gone by. But I think not bad in the way that she laid out that argument, talking about the different sort of aspects
better
of government.
Lines as well. Do we know if there's been a change of personnel there at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
There were some good lines there.
Yeah,
funny lines. But I mean, clearly scripted, but that's half of the course.
Sure, and actually, I think Keir Starmer is very, very good at sort of thinking on his feet and doing that off the cuff remarks. But actually, I don't think he had quite as intense and good an answers to some of her sort of weaving questioning.
How loud is the talk in his own camp of leadership challenge? Because people get very cross when people like me start talking about it, because they think it's a right-wing media invention and I should know better than to get involved. But, of course, we speak to people who are close to the top of the Labour Party, and they are talking about potential leadership challenges. But how worried should he be, do you think? I
think he should be worried. And actually, when Ed Davey mentioned that, does he think he will be standing there in 12 months' time? That remark, even more cutting than anything Kemi Badenoch could say today, right?
It's more man bites dog than dog bites man.
For sure, exactly. Kemi calls for him to resign every week and for the Chancellor to go every week. So it's nothing new, is it? But the way that Ed Davey did it, I thought, that's cutting that work, didn't it?
And that means that it is in the tea rooms, as they say, the major topic of conversation.
Every single person I talk to, every Labour peer, every person who has been inside Number 10, outside Number 10, everybody wants to hear what everybody else is saying. What are you hearing about leadership? Do you think that Wes Streeting, Angela Rayner will be the next person to lead the Labour Party? How long do you think Keir Starmer has left? It is a serious question, and it is not something that is brought up by us journalists and by the right-wing media or whatever. It is something that the Labour MPs are genuinely having conversations about themselves.
I'm glad you've clarified that. I think it's important. To not talk about it would be remiss and weird, actually. And while we are talking about it, just remind us what needs to happen, because it's not quite the same as the 1922 committee for the Tories, is it? With letters of no confidence and things like that. How exactly does the end arrive?
So you remember, I barely remember this. Jeremy Corbyn was challenged for the leadership by Owen Smith. There has to be a challenger. They have to be nominated by a certain percentage of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and then we go on to have an election where Keir Starmer, sources close to him have said he will still fight. He will go up again. He's not going to go down without a fight. So he probably will stand if he genuinely believes that he's still got enough support within the Labour Party, rather. So it's not an easy process. And unlike the Conservative Party, you have to put your name to this. It's not anonymous. It's not done behind closed doors. It's not done with secret letters. You have to say, I want a different Prime Minister. And that's a big thing for any Labour MP to come out and say in public. And I think to date, only Clive Lewis, potentially one more Labour MP, has come out and said, I do think we should look about whether we need a new Prime Minister. Everybody else is talking behind closed doors.
And is there room for a stalking horse? Does someone start the process running by sticking their head above the parapet, and then other people sit back and wait to see how things unfold before deciding whether or not they will break cover?
Completely. And right now they are having conversations about who that would be, whether that is something that they want to do now, whether they want to wait until after the local elections. Despite the mess that this government is in, despite the difficulties of this budget, I don't think he's facing anything imminently.
No.
I think that, the political pressure has eased in the last few weeks from the government. They have managed to pull things around a bit. They've managed to get things back on a little bit of a less shaky footing. They've come forward with a number of announcements, jury trials, several other things in the last few weeks. I think actually that they are on a little bit of a less shaky footing rather than they were before. I read today
that Reeves has won the city's confidence, which could save taxpayers billions of pounds, but I read it in approximately 1/100th of the scale of coverage that was given to her exploits as a schoolgirl chess player last week. So again, we find ourselves wondering how does this stuff reach the public? For the avoidance of doubt, though, that was one of, for me at least, I don't know whether you're a bit less ebullient, that was one of Kemi Badenoch's best performances yet, I thought.
You can see the confidence that's coming out of her.
There's a bounce there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Do we know why? Here's something that will surprise you. I recorded a podcast yesterday for Christmas Day, or it would be released either on Christmas Day or thereabouts, with the wonderful people who do the Quiet Riot podcast. And it's a review of the year, and you had to come up with someone who'd had a good year in politics. And I suppose the most obvious answer would be Zach Polanski. I went for Kemi Badenoch.
Okay.
But only on the grounds that she's still in the job, which, given where we were in January, is a magnificent achievement and a very unexpected achievement. What I don't get is the almost celebratory sense. I mean, like you say, she is extremely pleased with herself at the moment, but there is, and I know she generally is, but she hasn't been for much of this year. There's no evidence in the polls that she's doing anything differently or making any progress or making any movement at all. And yet there is a sense in the right-wing newspapers and on her own benches that she's sort of turning things, or has turned things around.
Yeah, I think there is, you can notice within Kemi Badenoch the quiet confidence that is growing in her performances at Prime Minister's Questions. When she comes on the media, she's less defensive, she's less ratty, she's more engaging, she's calmer, she's more pleasant. And I think that she is doing better than she was doing a year ago. The idea that we're now talking about who will last longer, Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch.
That's a win for her.
It is a win for her. A year ago, it was obvious, Kemi Badenoch is not going to last the year. And I still don't know if she's going to last until the next election. But your point is, and Keir Starmer made this point at Prime Minister's Questions, no one's listening. It's not affected the polls at all. People still
so two
do not
things
want
can
to
be true at the same time.
Exactly.
She is doing a lot better, but nobody cares.
Exactly.
There it is.
On your economic stability argument, that ties into the sort of wider argument that the Labour Party are having, because it is absolutely key and crucial that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are key to the sort of stability that we are seeing. And you see that whenever there is talk about removing Rachel Reeves as Chancellor, we had such an instability in the markets. And MPs are talking about that. If we remove the Prime Minister, will this see economic instability go crazy? So who is there a candidate that can calm the markets? So that definitely ties into this. But you're right, and you know, Rachel Reeves, despite so much economic pressure earlier this year from her backbenchers that she should rip up those fiscal rules, she stuck to it, and the city have, to be fair, backed her for it.
Yes, we'll wait to see whether it gets any more coverage tomorrow than it got today. Raphael Baer in The Guardian today writes about, it's a wonderful intro, headline as a question, the real battle on the right, who will be the MAGA stooge? And he's not alone in acknowledging the gravity of what Donald Trump has done in the last couple of days with this national security statement. Daniel Finkelstein, a Tory peer, and very much in the room where it happens when George Osborne and David Cameron were preparing to run the party and the country. Andrew Neil, about as right-wing as it's possible to be without dropping off the map altogether, in the Daily Mail, coming pretty close to using the sort of language that is necessary when describing the sort of threat that Donald Trump poses both to the post-1945 world order and to European democracy. Badenoch didn't go there. And she could, because Ed Davey did, and discomforted the Prime Minister. So Kemi Badenoch is clearly not going to tack away from Trump in order to embarrass Starmer, which could be quite an effective tactic for her, as Ed Davey demonstrated.
Yeah, but if you do remember some of her first Prime Minister's Questions, which we felt were really off top at the time, she was full-throatedly behind Donald Trump.
Yeah, so she can't go there.
I don't think she can go there.
She's literally siding with Vladimir Putin against Europe. That's not an opinion, that's counting. And she's boxed herself into a position where she has to, at the very best, stay absolutely silent. And at the worst, completely contradict her own early enthusiasm.
Exactly. So you've got Mr. Serious in the form of Ed Davey. I think he's really the only one that can do that. And I have felt, and I don't know if I'm imagining this, a little bit more reluctance from Sir Keir Starmer to defend his relationship with Donald Trump recently.
Yes.
He talked there about a strong Europe. We're united behind Ukraine. We'll always stand up for those freedoms. You didn't hear him say anything about, I have a strong relationship with Donald Trump. I talk to him all the time. And Ed Davey's saying, well, you might be defending these values, but when are you going to get on the phone and actually have a conversation with him and put these things to him? And he, I can't remember the last time we had a readout from Downing Street about a call between Starmer and Trump. I don't know if that relationship is cooling, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were.
Well, I mean, it sort of has to. And he will be asked the next time he's in front of journalists about Donald Trump's hideous and unhinged attack on the democratically elected mayor of London.
Yep.
Nigel Farage will be furious. He was very, very strong on the inappropriateness of American presidents getting involved in British politics. He spoke of little else when Barack Obama was in the White House, so he, no doubt, being such a consistent, honest and decent man, will be furious about an American president.
He'll definitely want to set his own record straight on that. But yeah, some absolutely, disgusting comments about, really personal comments as well. And that's something that Keir Starmer is not going to agree with, that sort of personal level of attack on anyone, let alone his own Labour mayor. And despite the fact that, we read in the newspapers that Sadiq Khan and Rachel Reeves had a bit of a bust-up a few weeks ago, we know that Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan they're not, natural bedfellows, it's fair to say, but they are on the same team.
Quite good mates, but and with a similar background in the law, but passionately opposed on Brexit, and quite possibly on some of the things Keir Starmer has done in order to try to keep Donald Trump sweet, which Phillips O'Brien from the University of St Andrews described to us in pretty stark terms yesterday as a terrible mistake, because you were never going to be able to keep him sweet. All you can do is dial down the hideousness briefly and temporarily before he dials it straight back up again, regardless of what you've done, how many knees you've bent or golden carriages you've laid on for his state visit.
Was it all a matter of time? Are we now, the longer Donald Trump remains in office, the harder that will be for Keir Starmer. I thought on Brexit as well, he had that very interesting point at the end there to Ed Davey talking about trade deals. If we do decide to go for a customs union, and he's insinuating that he doesn't want to do that, how do we undo the levels of trade deal, including that US deal? And he's using that today as an example of why he doesn't want to go back into the customs union. We can't undo that trade deal with the US that we've done. That's an interesting argument that we've not heard him make before, of the idea that's why we can't go in.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, it depends how juicy that deal actually is. But yeah, you're right. It does change the story slightly. And yet, once again, this weird political landscape where you've got Farage's lot right out here on the right, then you've got the Tories tacking just an inch to the left of them on some issues and trying to get further to the right of them on others. Labour apparently pursuing that space despite this enormous vacancy that Ed Davey almost single-handedly occupies now. And it becomes clear every PMQs, because he's talking about Brexit and he's talking about Trump's hideous behaviour, and none of the others are.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Farage never can. He can never say boo to a Trumpian goose. Badenoch, as you've reminded us, has boxed herself into a similar, if not quite as confining corner. Starmer has gambled on keeping him sweet. That gamble, if it hasn't already failed, is about to. And Davey's the only one who can actually report reality to the British electorate.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming across as Mr. Serious, isn't he? And Kemi Badenoch was coming across as the sort of pantomime, fun character of poking holes in everything and making a big fun of this Labour government. So two very, very different approaches. Depends on what you want from your PMQs, what you want from your potential leader.
With a bit of both.
Yeah, actually, I think so. I think it keeps it nice and fun, doesn't it? But on Brexit, finally, he didn't slap down David Lammy's comments about the customs union. Neither did Downing Street last week. I thought it was very telling that they didn't want to distance themselves from David Lammy. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep it open, even though I just don't think it's going to happen.
It's generational. I used to think it was whoever leads the Labour Party next, even if it is Keir Starmer, and he fends off an attack, I think that is when things will really start changing, because people will campaign for the leadership on a promise to do more, to get closer to Europe, and they'll campaign against Keir Starmer.